accelerated possession proceedings, then we're going to get into a bit more detail. What we do want as well is we've got live questions. So please feed through, and a lot of you obviously said you couldn't hear, so we apologise for that. But feed through some live questions, which we can do live on air to David, relating to your personal situation, or maybe a generic question. We are going to put David's email at the end of this webinar, where you can contact him directly with regard to any advice you need, or in fact, if you do want Landlord Sales Agency to sell one of your properties, or in fact, if you're looking for properties, they have a buyer's database, don't you? That's right, yeah. So just register. You can just register for that. So the accelerated possession procedure started in 1999. In 2015, there was 38,000 accelerated possession claims issued. That was the most ever. 2021, there was 8,000. 2022, there was 25,000. And I predict that when the accelerated possession procedure, or the Section 21, is abolished, which will be a year to 2 years, you will get landlord panic like we're getting now, especially after the rate. So we're getting that now, but when the date of the abolishment is set down, you're going to get landlords serving it because they want to serve their notice. It has a 6-month lifespan, and a lot of landlords don't trust the Section 8 procedure and the courts and whatever. So I think that you are going to see more landlords leaving.
Well, people were doing that in Wales. I've got about 30 properties in Wales, and because of the changes there, I just issued every tenant with a Section
Did you really?
21. I sent them a letter to kind of ease the nerves a little bit alongside. I didn't just send the Section 21 in the post, but I was uncertain, Paul, what was going to happen with the new proceedings. And you got letters coming in from the councils in Wales threatening £6,000 fines for EPCs. It was just too much.
Yeah,
they decided to send the Section 21s out.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's it, and obviously it is going to change. And of course, the whole point of the Renters Reform Bill, there's a 12-point plan, David. Right? Obviously, Section 21, the periodic tenancies. You can ask. Obviously, a tenant can have the right to have a pet. You can obviously. You can't discriminate against housing benefit tenants or children. Believe it or not, that still happens as well. We're looking at landlord redress. We're looking at a property portal. There's a whole lot of stuff that's coming in. Most of it is absolutely fine. But if you don't have the measures in place with regard to the court system or stronger grounds with regard to Section 8 and the periodic tenancies, which was a lot of student landlords were worrying that you could do a student tenancy, and a month later they could serve notice on you to leave. So there needs to be exemption there, like with purpose block. So that's the Renters Reform Bill. But what we did do at Landlord Action is we did a survey, and we were asking landlords, what's the reason why you're serving a Section 21 notice? They called it non-fault, but there's always a reason why. Okay. The biggest reason was because of our friend Liz Truss. She copped it all up, didn't she?
Interest rates shot up.
Interest rates shot up. But look, historically, landlords have had really low interest rates. You know, we're old enough and ugly enough to remember the times of 88, 90, when it was 14, 15% interest rates, which obviously that's alien to a lot of landlords. So now rates, and we're going to come to that in a sec. Now rates have settled down 4.5%, 5%.
Well, we thought they had it done, and everyone was like, okay, well, that was the end of it. And then there seems to be a bit of a blip the last couple of weeks with a spike of inflation, and now they think the rates are going to go up a little bit further. So it's kind of unnerved a few people, but hopefully we'll hear some better news over the course of the next month or so, and we'll start hoping.
Well, we had a rate rise last month, last week, and that is an issue. I mean, so when the rate shot up, then presumably you were getting loads of calls at Landlord Sales Agency. Was it from individual landlords that had one or two, or was it for landlords that had portfolios? And they would, and because you offer like a review service, don't you? A portfolio review, David, as a principal. Were they looking at possibly, well, that rate's too high, or that's come to an end? Do I look to remortgage or you know, and go again, or actually I'm just going to sell that?
So I think most people weren't looking to remortgage, and I think the average number of properties people got about 10. You know, we've had somebody, you know, people. I write mixed bag, but the interest rates have just gone from people making a profit, coasting when they were at 0.1%, Paul, to like absolutely losing a fortune. So I'm helping one of the landlords out whose air mortgage deficit is £7,000 a month.
Wow.
But she's got the equity
She's
in
got
the
equity.
property, but it's going to take time to sell.
How many properties?
She's got about 35.
Wow.
Yeah, she's got about 35. And when the properties come empty, I've mentioned this to you before, the tenants left the place trashed or whatever it is. So she could do a fire sale, maybe sell it for 160. One example, I spent 25 grand on the property, helped get it, did a pucker refurb, and I can sell for 300. So landlords are in this situation, which is the rates have gone up. I've got my tax bill went from 20 grand a year to 100 grand with Section 24. So some people
We're going to come to that. Yeah.
So you've got Section 24 taxes, you've got tenants, you haven't put the rents up as fast as the rates are going up. The refurb fees. So people have just got that whole shenanigan. So when they phone us up, we obviously just look at every single property individually and see what we can do best for that scenario. And sometimes we've been working with some landlords for 2 years, just selling the properties for the best.
Well, one by one or something.
One by one.
Right.
Every now and again we'll sell them all in a job lot, but they have to be well looked after portfolios. Then otherwise you're going to sell them too cheap. So if you got a really good portfolio, well looked after, well managed, then people will buy that in bulk. But generally speaking, then we're looking at trying to sell them individually, keep the tenants on board, get the best prices, and tell the tenants hopefully we can find another landlord to keep them on, or do a win-win with them when they have to move out, help them with finance and stuff like that. So we just do everything that we can to try and
you're proactive. So on the point of tenanted property, because I think you guys are experts in selling tenanted property, where maybe a traditional estate agent struggle.
Yeah.
Is that fair enough to say?
100%. If you go online now, so I've got so we based in Chester, we get a lot of properties in Liverpool.
Yeah.
And when you're doing your valuations, you see a lot of ordinary estate agents look at, when they market a tenant property, they just go landlords only. Right, so straight away you're knocking 20 grand off, or 10, 15, 20% off the value of the house.
Yeah.
Just market them for landlords. So we'll market to landlords and homeowners, to drive up a bit more, get the best price.
Yes.
And sometimes we're doing, that has the effect of, getting a better price from the landlords, and also maybe doing a deal. Sometimes tenant says, hey, I don't mind moving.
Right, are you pay them to leave or something?
We do all of that.
Okay. Fine. Okay, so just that I know we went off piece again, but it was important to understand about tenanted properties. And just one other question before I come back to my list as to why landlords are serving Section 21 notices. What percentage? So you've done 4,000 sales over 23 years or whatever, which is a hell of a lot, and a lot of expertise. What percentage of the properties you sell presumably are to other landlords and are tenanted? What percentage would you say?
Yeah, so I'd say about 40%. So up until a few years ago, 90% of our houses were tenanted, and now 90% are. It's been a swing like that,
right?
Because of the market, landlords getting out. A lot of the landlords, but the thing is, it is a challenge, Paul, because some of the landlords, even when we sell to other landlords, they still might want to put their own tenants in there,
right?
Because the tenant that's in there is paying a low rent or whatever. So we have to kind of do deals. The tenant will put the rent up a bit, provide the rent schedules and all of that, give the new buyer some reassurance. They're things that the estate agents won't do, you see. To try and get it sold and keep that tenant. But I'd say about 40%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. And just I've got a couple of stats before I just come down to this slide again. This is quite important actually. So the NRLA, the National Residential Landlord Association, who I would recommend join as a landlord for 85 quid a year, complete no-brainer. Got 100,000 members, and they do a lot of work. We work with them and do a lot of campaigning, and they are a part voice for the government as well. And landlords do need representing at government level, believe you me. They do a quarterly landlord confidence survey,
right?
And they've done a confidence survey, and they've said that 37% of landlords plan to sell a property or some of their properties in the next 12 months. Okay, 13% want to buy. They wanted to buy in Q1, which has just gone in 2023. And another stat that I saw, which another thing that is a real bugbear to landlords, but really recently has not been a real issue, has been void periods. You know this from running a portfolio. Have an empty property, you're hemorrhaging, aren't you? The latest stat that they've got is 87% of landlords said they had voids of under 4 weeks, which has never been that high. A percentage wise. So you can see, and we hear stories, and I did a recent interview, I think it was for ITV, about the rental stock crisis, where, you know, yes, in London and, you know, in cities or whatever, you've got tenants queuing around the block for a property, okay, having to try and outbid each other, okay, having open house viewings by agents. I also saw a statistic that's just come through from Good Lord, that it says here that a record amount of landlords now are asking for guarantors.
Well, can I give you a little story on that?
Please do.
So we just sold a property in Bracknell, right? So landlord, he lived abroad, tenanted property. We sold the property to a homeowner occupier wants to move in. Now that tenant is with a local letting agent, company called Romans, I think it is. Now that letting agent is trying to find that tenant another rental property.
Struggling big time.
But the tenant now has got to pass more stringent credit
checks
checks
compared to you,
compared to when he first moved in. So even though that tenant's been there for years with the letting agent, paid on time and this, that, and the other, they're not passing the credit checks because they need a guarantor and all that. So a tenant trying to find a property now, and you know, it's just near on impossible with all of the checks that they have to go through and finding the guarantors.
It is a nightmare. I mean, look, on average now, a tenant is paying 39% of their income towards rent, which is unheard of. Plus, they've got their bills, food, and everything's gone up. So it's really tough. And we can see at Landlord Action, obviously, rent arrears going up, but 60% of the instructions we get at Landlord Action are Section 21 compared to Section 8. It's never, ever, ever been like that. Just another reason why landlords are really serving Section 21, and this is where the grounds have got to be strengthened, and you've come across your fair share of antisocial tenants, is that under Section 21, you can evict with an antisocial tenant. When you get rid of that, you have to use Section 8 grounds. And of course, a lot of tenants or people in HMOs, there could be violence, mental health. They get scared of giving witness statements and stuff. So that needs to be strengthened. So that's a reason. And still lots of landlords are serving Section 21s because there's rent arrears and they just don't want to attend court. So they're the three main reasons. But obviously behind all that, Dave, okay, behind all that is other reasons as to why landlords are getting out. We're going to come to that about, you know, with regard to Section 24 and rates in a bit more detail. So landlords need confidence in the system for gaining possession and how periodic tenancies are going to work during the Renters Reform Bill. Agents and landlords have to make sure they give landlords a peace of mind that their investments can still pay. When Section 21 date is announced in 1 to 2 years, landlords will panic and serve Section 21 notices. That's where agents need to make sure they calm landlords down. Housing courts were going to be put on the table. They were off the table. There needs to be major investment in the court system, and there needs to be a massive recruitment in. I was saying, and I'll start this again. What I was saying is, please put your questions through. And I know a lot of you are saying about the sound, and I do apologise.
Apologies, guys.
Apologies, guys. We're going to edit this and we will send it out again. As I said, Liz Truss, she trumped all the landlords in the worst possible way, in the sense that she thought she could stimulate the economy. And of course, there was no confidence, and it went the other way. And of course, landlords, their rates went up. And that has been the single biggest drive of landlord selling, isn't it?
Well, Paul, I'm one of them. If I just like, I put all my mortgages were on trackers for years.
Right.
Wouldn't it be, right?
Yeah, of course.
And I was like, when should I fix them again? When should I fix them again? My mortgage cost went up by 20 grand a month.
Wow.
In 7 months. Yeah.
Wow.
Right. So that's 20 grand a month.
Yeah.
And so luckily I've been able to put my rents up by about 10. But I haven't been able to put them up by 20.
And that's where tenants are getting really hit.
You know, and that's where the whole shooting match comes.
Yes, of course.
So yeah, so it's like everybody's got you know, they've got everyone's all hands to the pump now, and a lot of elbow grease for landlords to try and get themselves sorted.
Yeah, most definitely. And then of course, I think what I really want to talk about is the tenant issues. So you're a landlord, you're looking at selling your property. You might have a good relationship with your tenant. You might have a poor relationship with your tenant. You may think you might need to evict the tenant. Yeah. The tenant doesn't give you access into the property. That's a big problem, isn't it, Dave? How do you guys deal with that issue?
Right, okay.
I'm a landlord coming to you. I can't get into my property. I can't do a gas safety. I do want to sell.
Yeah.
And I have to go to court. It's going to take me 6 months, but I'm worried that the market can change. I could lose the sale.
Yeah, well, okay, so I'd say this. So 90, I know we say percentages, but
Yeah.
in my experience, 95% of tenants, if you treat them right, even if up to that point they might have a bit of a grumble, you can get them to cooperate. And one of the things that we do straight away, we send them a nice letter. Your landlord needs to sell. And we're gonna be willing to pay you for the inconvenience of doing viewings, taking some photos and all that. 25 quid a pop for a viewing. That normally gets them on side.
Right.
And then we say to them, well, we're going to do our best to find another landlord to keep you on. And worst case scenario, if we can't, we'll help you move. Now, 95% of people reading that and getting involved in that with my team generally respond favourably. And then we sell loads of tenanted properties that way, because tenants are happy to give the access. They send us a text message with the bank details. They're over the moon. They can go down to the kebab house, can't they?
Well, I don't know about a kebab house, but what I would say, David, right? So when you've got a landlord, I want to sell a property for whatever reason. We've discussed a whole lot of reasons. There's still other stuff that we need to talk about, but I want to get out. I've had enough. Do you sell that property to you have an active buyers database? Do you do that, or do you use a network of other affiliates so you can sell the property? How do you actually sell the properties?
So the first thing that we do, we've got loads of landlords, thousands and thousands who are still active, who say we're interested in Liverpool postcode,
right,
Manchester, wherever they are. So they get sent the alert straight away, text and emails.
Yes.
And then, but what we find is, in order to get the best price for landlords quickly, we put the properties on Rightmove, Zoopla, send them out. Sometimes we've got like affiliates who are, companies who are interested in deals. We sell to Hong Kong buyers who, we've got agents who work with them.
You've got loads of networks.
We've just got loads of networks. And what we do is sometimes we sell off market, so we don't put them on Rightmove and Zoopla because the landlords don't want that. But in my experience, you throw everything at it.
Yes.
And we just the other thing that we do is, if you got property worth 110, it's a dead simple thing.
Yeah.
Most estate agents put it on for 120. We'll start off offers over 100, throw everything at it, and get to 110 in 28 days.
Right.
So we just price realistically, throw everything at it, and then get the tenants on board for the viewings. And usually that works.
Right, with you. I understand that. And tell me also, so we're going to have people on this webinar, and how many have we got here? We've got quite a few people on here. Tell me, on this webinar, if you're a landlord who wants to obviously come in your database and obviously wants to buy and looking at areas, how does it work now? I'm a cash buyer.
Yeah.
Right. What's the benefits now? What are you seeing with regard to the makeup of you having cash buyers and how quickly deals can be done?
40% of our buyers are cash. The challenge you've got at the minute with mortgages, which is I had a slide here at the time it takes to sell, takes a long time to get a buyer to get a mortgage now is like almost double what it was this time last year. The lenders are just really cautious. Takes ages to get the surveyors out, this, that, and the other. So 40%, if you're a cash buyer, obviously in a better position, but they still want to do all of their surveys and due diligence properly before they complete. But mortgage buyers are having a torrid time trying to get the mortgages quick to get the deals over the line. It's definitely a challenge now.
Yeah. And then it says here, do I evict the tenant, or do I refurb? Do I sell the property? So you put a need to refurb. We had a tell me, let's talk about refurbs. I mean, do landlords think, right, I need to sell the tenant in situ?
Yeah.
I get vacant possession. Do I refurb it then sell, or do I sell? Tell us the bet. And then obviously there's financing and all that. You're an expert at refurbs. How many refurbs you got on the go at the moment?
I've got 10 on the go right now.
Wow, that would be so stressful.
Well, I've done about 20 in the last 12 months, and it has been a challenge.
Jesus.
But sometimes I've decided to take it on the chin, Paul. I've just thrown like 3 or 4 into auctions where I thought, well, if I do the refurb, will I get me money back? Will I make a much profit off it? So if you got a cheap property worth 120 now, 150 after the refurb, and the refurb costs 15, 20 grand.
Right.
I'm like just selling them as they are.
Because it will sell quicker.
Yeah, just sell quicker.
It will sell quicker.
Push it through an auction.
Yeah.
I use like my own auction, Patterson's auction house, whatever it is. You choose the right one for the job.
Yeah.
But then when you've got a property with a lot of equity in it and you can do a good refurb, what we're finding now is if you do a proper refurb and you sell it for top price through a local agent,
yes,
then the lenders and the surveyors don't find any fault with it, and those sales go through pretty quick, 100% of the time. Whereas if you cut any corners on the refurb or the property's not in great condition, sometimes the mortgages fall through or they get downvalued. So you have to do a
and how do you right, and let's talk about, because obviously we talk about sales progression team and someone comes to you and whatever, and at the end of the day a property's only worth what it's valued at. The problem you've got is that you have a surveyor and a mortgage value that will value the property and it's down valued. How do you get by that? What can you do?
Well, you just negotiate a deal. So I know that's a simple response to that, but a lot of the surveyors will go in there and, if they're valuing for the first time buyer, they normally value at the price you're buying it for. But for investors or for remortgages, sometimes they're being a bit cautious. Whether the lenders have told them to do that, who knows? But it gets downvalued, and we try our best to say, look, you're going to have to buy it at that price, put a little bit more money in or whatever it is. But sometimes if there's a bit of meat on the bone, there's a reason for the down value, the electrics aren't so good or whatever. There's always a bit of room for negotiations just to try and get the deal done.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think also one thing that I want to pick up here is we've had quite a few questions that have come through. Justine, and I think I can answer this. Some landlords have allergies to pets. Can that be a reason not to allow them in? I mean, look, if you're a landlord, you're renting a property, as a landlord, you're not living in that property. So I don't know how you'd be affected by allergies. I think how it's going to work with the Renters Reform Bill is that, I have a dog, you've got you love your 2 cats and whatever. Yes, we're homeowners, but obviously for a tenant to have a property, I think it's great for a tenant's mental health to have a pet, but some pets cannot be fit for that property. So I'll give you an example. We do work for a build to rent, a big organization, small little unit. They had a husky in there, right? Absolutely chewed the flat to pieces. What you can do under the Renters Reform Bill is that a tenant can say, I want to bring my pet. A landlord can say, I'm okay with you bringing my pet, but you have to take out additional pet insurance, and that's pet damage insurance, and that's fair enough. It depends on the property. So that is going to be part of the bill.
Paul, I would never stop any of my tenants having pets in the property. Although I did buy a property once, and they had about 11 cats, and all of the wooden stairs were stained with urine. So some tenants are an absolute disaster, aren't they?
Well, they are, and it is a nightmare. And I can tell you now, look, I'm a director of the company that owns my deposits. We protect 1.2 billion pounds worth of deposits. We do over 10,000 adjudications a year with our adjudication team. I can tell you now, pet damage is really low. It's actually quite low. A lot of it, actually, 17% of claims are cleaning, or wear and tear and stuff like that. I've had a couple of questions. Will has just sent a real generic question in. I don't know what that means. What are the merits for buyers? Fine. Okay. So Dave, as an expert and a property veteran, I'm going to call you a property veteran, even though you don't look a day over 30. Okay. You're pleased to know. That Botox is kicking in very well. All right. Is as a buyer, so you've got 30, 35, 40,000 people on your buyer database. Okay. You're a buyer, you've got some cash and whatever, whether you're a newbie landlord investor coming in, give us some top tips for newbie investors coming in that getting into buy to let now.
Well, look, for me, it's dead simple, right? No one's got a crystal ball, but if you buy and hold, right? So if you're looking to make a quick buck, then you've got to be really sharp, But if you're going to buy a property and you hold on to it for 20 years, by and large, they might double. So if you can hold on to that asset, where else are you going to get that kind of return from? Bitcoin, a job, you're not going to make any fortune. So for a normal person, property is still where it's at. And I just have this motto, buy it cheap if you can. If they're worth 130, buy them for 110, 115. There's deals like that out there. We got deals like that all of the time. Landlords are happy to take a bit of a deal to get a property over the line, and then just just manage your tenants, manage the house, and if you've got like 10 or 15 of them over 20 years, you're going to be quids in, aren't you?
So I've got loads of questions to ask you. All right, we've got about 15 minutes left for this webinar. As a landlord now, and I know you don't fully manage your properties, you're an agent for fully managed, and your places are all over the place. And we've got landlords that have got properties in certain sectors, or maybe all over the place and whatever. And I say this when I do my education and whatever, and I talk to agents and this or whatever. Isn't trying to be a self-managed landlord the most difficult it's ever been now? And would you use an agent to fully manage?
Well, I've gone through about 3 or 4 agents, Paul. So some of them, one of them ran off with the money.
Really?
The other one was incompetent, ran off set. Don't know if you know. So I can understand why
there's
people
good and bad.
might
Yeah,
wanna
yeah.
do it
And you get a
themselves.
lot of landlords that have had bad experience with agents, but you know what, I'm going to do it myself. And I can talk to you with my other cap on. We own the property redress scheme. We have 18,000 agents, and we deal with agent complaints or whatever. You know, you've really got to do really good diligence when you find an agent, you know, which is Trustpilot, allagents.co.uk. Speak to other landlords that are using their services.
But now, just like say, it's all regulated now. You can get good ones, and you can see all of the reviews. So for me, I use an agent, but they've been, they're kind of in-house agents that Paul. So I've got a really good relationship with my agents. They're very, very good. But my business partner, Maz, who I've mentioned a few times, he runs all of his himself. But he's a savvy Asian businessman. He had his brother doing the gas set and this, that, and the other. So some people are set up for managing their own properties and dealing with tenants, and other people aren't. So I wouldn't do. I couldn't bear dealing with tenants.
It is really difficult. One thing I want to talk to. So we've talked about Section 24, the tax, which was a big hit for the buy-to-let industry, which has resulted in landlords leaving. But there's been all these storms. Obviously, there's been the rates. There's been the biggest changes that have come into the private rental sector as the Renters Reform Bill. We've done loads and loads of education on that. And I would say to everyone here, if you haven't subscribed to Landlord Zone, subscribe to it, because you get all the breaking landlord news. And then, of course, one thing we haven't touched on, which I want you to give us more details, is EPCs, electrical performance certificates. There was a worry that it was going to be mandatory up to a grade C, that it was going to come in 2025. I never knew that. I always said all along it was never going to be 2025. There was too much happening. Thank God for that. There's been an announcement that the mandatory for bringing it up to a grade C is going to be 2028, which has given some landlords some breathing space. But the reality is, presumably, you're getting calls from landlords where they're mentioning, you're saying, well, presumably you ask the same question, why are you selling? And they're saying EPC, so they could have a property, an old terraced house, an old property in its 20s, 30s in Durham, for argument's sake, and they're getting $7 a year rent on UC, and it's going to cost them 15, 16 grand to get it up, because it doesn't matter. So give some of our people that are listening on this webinar some tips about EPCs, what they need to do, how they need to do it.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple of live examples as well. So I had a guy selling a flat in Peterborough, and the buyer who was buying it was another landlord who owned another flat in that block. Said, I'm not going to buy it unless you turn it from a D to a C. Right? That landlord had a flat in that block that was a C. So what we couldn't understand is why was one a C and one was a D. So we asked our EPC guy, he got details of the boiler, details of this, that, and the other, and he was able to recreate that as a C anyway. So sometimes the rules have changed. Sometimes people have invested money in property. And they maybe don't know that their properties that are D-rated, if you reassess them now, again, could be a C. So one of the things is not over panic. But what I can tell people is that buyers now and lenders are incentivizing mortgages and arrangement fees if you've got a C rating. Some buyers are asking for them. So although it's not going to come in till 2028, you're going to see an incremental tightening of people being concerned about buying properties that are C or D rated. I'd just suggest build up if you've got properties locally, build up a great relationship with an EPC guy. Get them involved in.
But is there enough EPC guys around? Because there's a shortage.
Well,
is there enough?
No, I think there's loads.
Right, okay.
I've got no problem getting EPCs done anywhere.
Yeah. But it's something that a landlord really needs to think about. And what is that added cost? You know, there are incentive schemes out there that different councils and boroughs do.
So I think that's a minefield. I think if I heard these things that if tenants are on less than 30 grand a year.
Yeah.
They're on benefits.
Benefits.
You can get
if they don't have any
grants
central
and-
heating, gas
Yeah.
central heating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can get grants. But I'd just say, guys, don't panic, but you should definitely get your properties assessed. And if you put new windows in and new boilers in over the years, you might be able to, it might not cost you £6 grand.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, but don't panic. Right. I've got loads of questions that are coming through, Dave. So we're going to try and answer these questions. One was from Corinne. What if my lease by a freeholder doesn't allow pets because they can revoke the lease? You're quite right. So a lot of head leases will say that you can't have pets to a certain extent. I think that I don't think the Renters Reform Bill will be able to overturn head leases at all. So I wouldn't panic relating to that, and it's business as usual. Amanda, I'm getting contacted by rent-to-rent companies to rent my property. What are your views on this kind of system? I can answer you that question. I know all about rent-to-rent. I was going to set up a rent-to-rent association way back in 2014. There's some good rent-to-rent companies out there that do it well, like Northwoods. They're very good at rent-to-rent. There's a really good company that deal with social housing tenants in London called Elliott Lee. They're pretty good. There's a lot of people that go on courses and learn about rent-to-rent. They haven't got a clue about managing property, don't have their finances in place, don't understand about HMO renting and legislation, and I wouldn't touch them with a barge pole. We have seen a dramatic increase in complaints on rent-to-rent companies or guaranteed rent fees through the property redress scheme as well. So I would say that actually you really need to do your due diligence. I think that there are some good rent-to-rent companies, but it is a bit of a murky world.
Yeah,
What's your view?
Yeah, well, I use I've got somebody who works for me, and she does some rent-to-rent. She's got deals with Mears, for instance. So,
there's big organisations that do it. That's good, you know, on a bigger, longer deal.
Yeah, and you're always going to get your money off Mears as long as that company, when they get the money, pay you.
Yeah, but they're big conglomerates. They're big companies. We're talking about there's individual companies or the people that go on these property training courses that do rent-to-rent and haven't got a clue.
Yeah, I wouldn't personally touch anybody that wasn't doing who hasn't got a contract with a charity or me as a big company. That's their business model. They find those kind of B2B deals. I'm happy to work with them as long as they're sound financially.
And that's really, really important to do that. And they're put in social tenants and you get the direct payments. But I mean, you've got to look at that. And I think there is a social responsibility and obviously the need for, you know, I work with a company called Capital Letters that try and find housing for people in the 32 London boroughs and stuff. And during COVID, they were getting loads of properties because landlords were panicking about voids and stuff. And then, of course, the market went mad. I think the biggest losers in a lot of the Renters Reform Bill that's going to come in the abolishment of Section 21, unfortunately, going to be more vulnerable tenants that are universal credit, because a landlord wants to make sure the universal credit comes directly to them. You've had problems with that, where obviously a tenant takes the money and doesn't pass it on. And then secondly, are they going to pay the top up, or do I just rent it to a professional couple that are going to pay me 300 quid a month more? You know, well, that's what's going to happen, and you're going to see a big disconnect. Someone's just also said there's some people's mortgages costs have gone up 3 or 4 times, but the rent has got nowhere near up into some areas. Do you think rents will continue to rise to meet the rise in cost by the end of the year? I think yes, for definite. Anything else you need?
The only thing I'd say is with my own personal portfolio, I've got like, say for example, 35 properties with Birmingham Midshires, and I was paying their variable rate of just over 6%. I've gone back to them, and they're putting me on a 5-year fix of 4.5. So my mortgage costs are coming down by about 150, 200 quid a month on some of the mortgages, and the rents have gone up. So you know, every situation is different, but you should be able to get your mortgage costs down, get your rents up, but there'll always be a time lag with it, you know.
Look, this is David's contact details. Please take a picture of that. There's a QR code as well. David, I'd like you to be able to be accessible to the people that have come online here and the people that listen to the recording, where they can tap into your advice. Maybe you can do a portfolio review, or you can do a review. They can set up a Zoom review. You do Zooms regularly, don't you, on a Thursday or Friday with clients and stuff. Or whether that your organisation can help try and sell the property, or in fact, if you want to come on as a buyer to get a below market value deal as well. Yeah.
Well, it's all of the above. So one of my landlords I'm working with, helping her with the refurb, helping with the mortgage costs.
Yeah.
I've now got like somebody, refinancing the remainder of the portfolio. So if you email me over your questions and your situation and your portfolio, I can generally just give you some tips off for you.
Yeah, no, definitely, and tap into that advice with many years of experience. Mike sends us a question in: does the panel believe the government are on a mission to eradicate smaller 1 to 5 portfolio landlords? They're not truly interested in being helpful. I think really, yeah, the smaller landlords will be disappearing. I mean, look, you've got 2.3 million landlords out there. You've got 4.4 million dwellings. You've got 9 million tenants. Let's look at the bigger picture. The bigger picture is we will be looking at a general election, most probably the beginning part of 2025. Okay, who would have thought that consistent conservative governments would have made some of the laws they've made with regard to landlording and how it's been? What is really important is the tenant vote. Yeah, there's 8, 9, 10, 12 million tenants. How many tenants? That's really, really important. One question I do get asked, and I don't know what's going to happen, is that if Labour get in, there's a strong chance Labour are going to get in. Are rent caps going to go back onto the table?
They've not been talking about that.
They haven't been talking. They talk about it in Scotland, but it's something that has been talked about. But I do think that something is going to have to give, because I look at the situation with regard to tenant affordability and where it's going and how it's been. Even you look at the Northwest. I mean, the Northwest in rents have gone up 25% in the last 12 months in the Northwest. Who would have thought that? You know, you're talking about normally you talk about London and stuff like that. So look,
the Tories are talking about putting caps on supermarket prices. I know voluntary and all that. So if they talk about food caps, they might talk about rent caps.
Yeah. Well, no, most definitely. Sarah says, if a tenant has a sublet, how do I evict the subtenant? Look, I'll give you my email address, which is paul@landlordaction.co.uk. Email me personally, and I'll get one of my team to speak to you at Landlord Action. We've got one more time for one more question about an EPC. Okay. EPC question I have in a property. This is for mooring in a housing association, block of flats. My flats are rating D. In the flats owned by the housing association, also they have a D and an E. Are the housing association going to have to make their properties to a C rating, or is the EPC regulation only aimed at private landlords?
Well, that's a great question. You'd like to think that housing associations and councils are all obligated to get the C ratings, but I'm none the wiser if they've got a pass out, Paul. Do you know?
Well, I think what it is look, the private rental sector has been battered with regard to its reputation and how it's been. I think it's 21% in the England Housing Survey said that 21% of properties rented out by private rental landlords are not up to a decent home standard. That's the whole point, decent home standard, to have rent out better home. And of course, I'm on a TV program called Nightmare Tenants, Slum Landlords. So, you know, there are slum landlords out there. But I'll tell you what, the social housing sector it's just as bad, if not worse. Now, I've had conversations at quite a high level. There was a program on a couple of days ago, 60 days in the council estate, and there was a poor mother that had lots of children, a single mother, lots of children, whatever, and she had terrible mold, and there was the tragic story of the poor boy in Rochdale, whatever. Social housing, you know, there was one, I did a ITV interview with Dan Hewitt on ITV News, and he was showing a mushroom that was growing off the floor. I mean, some of them are absolutely horrendous, and I think that,
the fried eggs in the morning.
well, I don't know about having the fried eggs. I think that'd be enough to make your stomach turn. But I think the social housing sector have got a lot to answer for, and they will have accountability.
I couldn't believe that photo with the mushrooms going out.
Oh, it's terrible. And can you imagine how bad it is for the tenants?
If that was for the normal landlords, you'd be crucified.
You'd be crucified. And look, to be honest, and look, I was happy to go on a program because they offered balance. It was showing about nightmare tenants. There's far more nightmare tenants than nightmare landlords. And that is a fact on numbers. But you know, we do have to raise standards. David, we're coming to the end of this webinar. I do apologise to the people that did tune in, and we did have some technical issues. What we are going to do is we are going to edit. We're going to send this out to all the 427 people that registered for the webinar, plus obviously other data sources as well. I hope that you had a lot of information. By all means, go onto David's website, landlordsalesagency.co.uk, david.coughlin@landlordsalesagency.co.uk. If you want my details are there. Paul at landlordaction.co.uk. But yeah, David, thank you for coming in.